Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Today, we dive into the critical and timely topic of trauma, specifically within the Jewish community, with two exceptional guests, Malka Shaw and Stacy Shapiro, both LCSWs. And with over 25 years of experience in the field of mental health, Malka brings her expertise in trauma therapy and EMDR, starting from the tragic days of 9/11 to complex issues like betrayal, trauma, and maternal wellness. Stacy complements this with her extensive background in individual trauma therapy, energy psychology, and innovative techniques like brain spotting. Together, they discuss their unique journey that led them to collaborate in response to the rise of anti-Semitic incidents. They'll shed light on the challenges faced by Jewish therapists and their clients in these trying times, the nuances of cultural competency, and the importance of understanding the therapist's own emotions during treatment. This episode promises to be not just an exploration of their specialized training, but also a heartfelt conversation about resilience, community, and the necessity of self-care in the face of adversity. Whether you're a therapist seeking to enhance your skills or simply someone interested in the intersections of culture and mental health, this conversation is sure to resonate and inform. Malka and Stacy have been receiving hundreds of requests to formulate a wider training for all therapists and helping professionals. And so they are now extending an invitation to a vital training opportunity for therapists and helping professionals in response to the recent tragic events impacting the global Jewish community. Their training focuses on aiding individuals in providing effective support during times of active conflict and the recent surge in anti-Semitism. Working with Jewish clients during active war and rise in anti-Semitism, a trauma perspective will be a live training event held on November 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You will gain insights into active and communal trauma, assessment skills, and concrete tools to calm nervous systems, along with a Jewish cultural competency component. You'll understand the impact of current events through the lens of intergenerational trauma. Plus, you're going to learn ways to self-regulate, including emotional freedom technique and tapping. Plus, you will get 1.5 continuing education hours, so go ahead and click the link in the show notes to learn more and sign up. Now, we know this is a last-minute training opportunity, and you may not be able to make it tonight, so be sure to fill out the form in the show notes to sign up for their listserv so that you will receive updates on their future trainings. But before we hear from Malka and Stacy, I am thrilled to unveil an exclusive offer from Therapy Notes just for you. Are you navigating through a storm of paperwork and a maze of appointments? Well, you can anchor yourself in the serene harbor of Therapy Notes. Celebrated as the pinnacle of electronic health records, Therapy Notes is the guiding light in the bustling world of mental health care. Their 24/7 live phone support is a testament to their commitment, reflected in a brilliant 4.9 star rating on trustpilot.com and Google. And Therapy Notes offers a suite of solutions that cater to your every need: effortless billing, efficient scheduling, meticulous note-taking, and cutting-edge telehealth services. And there's exciting news for prescribers. The launch of ePrescribe is here to revolutionize your practice. And if you're considering a switch from another EHR, Therapy Notes promises a seamless transition, importing your demographic data for free, so you're ready to sail smoothly from day one. And join the ranks of over 100,000 mental health professionals who have already charted a course with Therapy Notes. And you can set off on a 2-month free exploration, no strings attached. Simply click the link in the show notes or sail straight over to checkout with promo code Lisa at therapynotes.com. Plunge into the Therapy Notes voyage today and discover why it's the beacon of the industry. With Therapy Notes, you're not just choosing an EHR, you're setting a course for success. Well, hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and this week's guest, I have two amazing guests this week. Welcome to the podcast, Malka Shaw and Stacy Shapiro. Welcome, ladies. It is so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and I want to just jump right into this because it's a really important topic, and I also want everyone to know that at the end of this podcast, you will have an opportunity to learn more about these trainings that Malka and Stacy are going to share. So before we jump into the meat of the topic, Malka, could you share with our listeners a little bit about you and your background?
Sure. Thank you. My name is Malka Shaw. I have been in the field of mental health for over 25 years. And I started in trauma actually on 9/11. So I wound up kind of by accident working with the FEMA and the Red Cross on the day of 9/11 and those weeks ensuing afterwards, and then working partly with Project Liberty and other projects in the post 9/11 projects and programs. And then after that, I've had a lot of first aid training for larger scale disasters, and I've been on call for larger scale disasters. I always say that this is a skill set that I have that you never really want to have to use. It's a skill set that was dormant until the unfortunate events of October 7th. So through those trauma experiences, I have trained to be a trauma therapist working with individual trauma, childhood trauma. I work with a lot of couples and deal with betrayal trauma, maternal wellness, postpartum depression, and that kind of thing. So taking that kind of experience and then using this to help Jewish clients and Jewish therapists through that experience, also through my experience as being a clinical supervisor for over 15 years, and help the Jewish therapists work through their countertransference, because it's almost impossible to not have countertransference in these times.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Stacy, can you tell our audience a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been working in the field for 25 years, and I have a private practice. I service people in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida under counseling. And I have a trauma background more from the individual standpoint of people coming in after a tornado or 9/11 or childhood traumas, those types of things. And so I got a lot of training in how to help them the quickest way that we know in the field.
Right.
So I got a lot of training through comprehensive energy psychology, certified in brain spotting, and clinical EFT. And so I bring that into our training to help therapists understand what they can do.
Right. And so prior to October 7th, did you two ladies know each other?
Yes.
Okay.
So Stacey has an even better story, but we met over COVID through an EFT training, and then we stayed in touch. But Stacey, why don't you share your story over the summer, because I think it's a great story.
Okay, sure. So basically, I'm very intuitive, and I bring divine energy into everything that I do. And so I was called to work with Jewish people and their trauma. And I had no idea how to market this, because I was like, what? I'm like, okay, people come in and I can help them, but I've never really reached out to the Jewish population to help with their trauma. So I thought it was going to be past trauma, intergenerational trauma, things like that, because we all have that, and we come even to this training with that. And so all of a sudden, Malka put out onto a listserv, somebody had said, I don't know how to work with trauma. What'd you say?
You were trying to reach out to me in the summer before.
Oh yeah, I tried to reach out to Malka, and then our schedules didn't, mesh or whatever, and we never connected. And then somebody had put out on a listserv of mental health therapists that they didn't really know how to respond to the October 7th massacres and things that happened. And so we both have training and understand how to help. And so when Malka put out, I can do a Zoom, I can, give you guys something. She said she wanted a co-host. So I was like, oh, that's me. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, So it was really cool to, 3 months prior, be walking around going, I know I'm going to be working with Jewish people and their trauma, and then have it right there, what we're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I mean, kind of like in a way woo-woo. I mean, really, you had it in you and you put it out there into the universe. And I guess my story is a little bit similar in how I came to be interested in, having you ladies on the show was through, gosh, I don't even know. It's like connect the dots, right? And so, but I do have to give a shout out to Moshe Norman, because he is the one that I believe hooked me up with Malka in some fashion. And then I don't know, we all just kind of got together and we thought this is such an important topic. We wanted to get this information out to the audience. And this is, this information is definitely for really anybody who is curious about trauma and how it impacts people, but it's definitely for Jewish therapists. And it's also for therapists who aren't Jewish, but are working with Jewish clients or patients. So now that we kind of like put a framework around this topic, you have done some trainings already for therapists, right? For Jewish therapists. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about what you've already done?
Sure. So I just want to say that one of the things about our story that's so interesting is when we put it out there that we were going to do a Zoom, we thought maybe 30, 40, 50 people tops were going to show up. The Zoom maxed out past the 300 person limit. And then then we decided to do a second Zoom that one also maxed out. I think the other therapist that was involved at that time, her Zoom limit maxed out even at a higher limit. And then we did one through Nefesh organization. We did not expect the amount of people who were reaching out and needed this. We did not expect that it was going to become international. Like, we're getting calls from people in Paris, Panama, England, not just Israel and America, and not just the New York or East Coast of, we're getting all over, and specifically areas that are not densely populated by Jewish therapists. So we did not expect the amount of, we just did not expect it to be as big as and as impactful as it has. And the needs keep coming in. So I think that's one thing that surprised both of us. And there's been a few other people along the way that's been helping us, and things just really, it's been a little bit, has it been 4 weeks yet? It's just about 3.5 weeks since this has started. And people will keep asking us, "So do you have a website?" We're like, wait, no. I mean, we're still running our private practices. We're still moms, and we're trying to help our community as much as we can. But the thing I want to correct you is that I do believe these trainings can help not just the Jewish therapists. We're giving out practical trauma therapy, and we are giving a Jewish cultural
Competency.
Thank you. We are giving a Jewish competency so people can understand it from a trauma perspective, from the client's perspective. But we do believe that this could be relatable to other populations. This isn't just, but even though that's our focus, as this was a reaction to the horrible attacks on October 7th. And then since October 7th, the rise of anti-Semitism has increased about, what is this, Stacey, like over 400%.
Yeah.
Over 400% in 3.5 weeks, which is devastating and can cause a lot of trauma for everybody. So that's how it just came. So we have our upcoming ones that we changed the curriculum. Stacey, why don't you tell about our upcoming training?
So our upcoming training, we're going to be talking about how to regulate the nervous system when it gets activated from trauma. We're also going to be doing the Jewish cultural competency piece. And even I am learning things as we are researching this piece. So I think anybody who is Jewish can benefit, and anybody who is not can also benefit to understand more about this culture. And then what's the other piece that we're doing, Malka?
So we're also talking a little bit at the very end, we do hit countertransference. I think that was one of the pieces that made our training a little bit different, because in the following weeks, we saw other Jewish therapists putting out a lot of process groups and a lot of Zooms for people to talk about what's happening, but they weren't really giving concrete advice. And that's why I wanted to bring up the clinical supervision piece. I guess because of my experience with clinical supervision, I was very well aware that countertransference was going to ride very strongly. I felt it, the attacks happened on Sunday. I was, somebody who observes the Sabbath, I found out Sunday night. Monday morning, I am right there in sessions with clients, and I felt it very much so with all sorts of clients, whether they were Jewish, not Jewish, and it was very loud and strong. So I felt very strongly about adding that into the curriculum as we were putting to, sort of mapping out a structure for what we were going to talk about. And I think that for the Jewish therapists really resonated and really hit some strings in people's hearts, because everything that I was saying, they were like, wow, just for the audience, countertransference is when the therapist has unconscious feelings about what's going on in the therapy sessions. Transference is when the client has unconscious feelings about what's going on in the therapy session. And generally speaking, a seasoned therapist has really worked out their countertransfer issues. A good therapist has already been to therapy for themselves, has hopefully done years of clinical supervision, should still be in clinical supervision, and maybe after 20 years can go into a peer supervision model. But this is not something that was worked out because it's an active, ongoing trauma that we're experiencing alongside with our clients. And what do we do with that? What do we do with that when you're sitting in front of a client who has different views than you? What do you do that when the client has very strong views or assumes that you have certain views? And where do you put that energy? Because it's not like you had time to work through that in sessions after sessions. We have to kind of go on the spot and deal with it, keep ourselves grounded, keep ourselves focused, and really understand that raw emotion, that feeling that's going behind each of our thoughts. Their thoughts might be logical or not logical, but what makes it countertransference and what makes it potentially a problem in the therapy session is when it could, our boundaries could be lowered. It can affect our therapeutic relationship with our clients. And we're just kind of put into this impossible situation because everybody has such strong feelings. Mm-hmm. And we have to sort of put our politics aside so that we can focus on what are we doing there? We're here in this room to serve our client.
This episode is brought to you by okclarity.com. okclarity.com is the upscale version of ZocDoc for the Jewish world. It's the place for any Jew to find an excellent therapist, psychiatrist, nutritionist, or coach, and it is completely free to use. Professionals on okclarity.com are vetted and have experience working with the Jewish community. And yes, you can even find me there. Just tap the link in the show notes and you can see my profile. And if you're in the market for a therapist, coach, nutritionist, psychiatrist, or the like, you definitely want to check them out. If you don't find what you're looking for, they have a concierge service where you complete a short form and they will personally match you all anonymously and for free. If you're a therapist, coach, or other wellness professional, I highly recommend joining their directory. Their team is absolutely amazing. And if you want to stay relevant as a wellness professional within the global, global Jewish community, OK Clarity is the place to be. And last but not least, if you have WhatsApp, OK Clarity has a fabulous WhatsApp status with close to 9,000 obsessed followers. And yes, I am one of them. Their WhatsApp is a free way to improve your mental health, and they post the best humor, so you'll laugh along too. I'll put the links to their website and WhatsApp in the show notes, but smash those links, y'all. You won't regret it.
Yeah. Right. And I think what is helpful about our training is that we're bringing simple, effective strategies that are quick and easy to help in the moment, because the acute trauma is activating everybody's nervous systems, including the therapists. And so if we can, stay grounded during sessions and help our clients do that, everyone's going to, come out of this a little bit healthier. And we're also building a community. So after the Jewish therapists, I offered some groups, smaller groups for Jewish therapists to learn the tapping and understand how to do it better. So we practiced on each other. They were really surprised at how they felt better afterwards. And I explained in the training, I was not all about this energy stuff either in the beginning. In the beginning, I was skeptical. We're therapists, we're analytical, we're left brain. Like this is very, out there. And I went to a CE on trauma and tapping at Bryn Mawr University many years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago. And the woman came from New York. And she was like teaching us this stuff, working on meridians. And I was like, what is she talking about? And everyone's looking at her like she has 20 heads, And so she's like, guys, I am coming from New York. I am getting paid a lot of money for consultations to help people through their traumas. They come like for, 4 or 5 sessions and they're done with their traumas. And we're just like, okay, like, how are we going to get our clients to do this? And like, how does this work? And so I kind of left it alone. And then I started doing coaching. And the coaching industry uses tapping all the time. Millions of people are using tapping. And so I was like, there must be something to it if they're all using it and they're, loving it. So I started using it on myself and realizing that it actually does work. And then I went for more training and I was like, how am I going to bring this into therapy? Like, how do we like combine the two? And I found the Comprehensive Energy Psychology, the association, ASAP, and they were doing clinical EFT trainings and things like that. And I learned about all different kinds of energy things that we can do. And so I just kept getting more and more into it and trying to understand. And it was very quick and easy to resolve traumas. Like I was telling Malka, this person who came in for a tornado, I saw him. It was like divine intervention. I don't know. I saw him like 2 days before the tornado for the first time. And I saw on his shirt what he had, where he worked. And a couple of days later, I heard about the tornado and how it ripped through this workplace. And I was like, I wonder if he was there, So he did later tell me that he was there and he was scared under a desk with a coworker and the tornado was coming through and he was afraid to go back to work and all this stuff. And we did some, tapping and some energy psychology. And within like a couple of sessions, he's like, it's amazing. Like I can go back to the workplace and I am not fearful anymore. And I can sleep now, not having flashbacks. Like it just like all went away. So there are things that we can do to help that a lot of therapists don't even know,
Yeah. Wow.
And then a lot of people started coming to me during COVID saying, oh, you need to get trained in brain spotting. I'm like, brain spotting? Like, what do I need brain spotting for? It's only, I'm helping people in a couple of sessions get over their trauma and get over their phobias and whatever else. And so finally, because 3 people came to me in like a week and told me that I needed to do this, I finally went off for the brain spotting training and got certified, ended up getting certified because I really enjoy brain spotting and I think it's really helpful. And so between all these modalities, we can help the nervous system just chill out and resolve, memories, and they don't have to keep popping in and affecting our daily life. So that's one of the things that we bring into the training is the tapping. I do a short example with Malka, and then she does it with me, and then the audience does it also, so they can feel what it feels like to experience tapping. So a lot of our stuff is hands-on. We're giving very practical things that you can take from right then and there and bring it into your practice the next day or yourselves later that night. Or we've heard other therapists tell us, like, I got off the call and then I went in with a patient and I had to use it because I didn't know what else to do. So I used it and it was effective. And we're just like so happy that we can help so many people, right? Like over 500 therapists, I think, have come through our trainings.
I think it's closer to 1,000. I think it's more than that.
Yeah. So, and then they're all trickling it down to all their clients. And so there's just like tens of thousands of people being helped, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I think one of the things that Stacy said is really huge is the things that I had learned in the early 2000s are very different than what we have now. Like the whole somatic piece of trauma was not even something I've said this before. I almost wish I could take me now and go in a time machine back to 9/11 with the skills that I have now. What a difference, because I did a lot of debriefing on 9/11 and 9/12 of the first line responders, and we used to have them retell the story. And you don't have to retell the story. You just have to get them to a grounding place and help them with their energy. And sometimes the retelling of the story can cause more trauma.
Right.
So the techniques have definitely changed. I personally train in EMDR. So I bring a little bit of the EMDR philosophy to the trainings as well. Because that somatic piece is also really important. It's not just the CBT piece that we might have been trained in the late 90s and early 2000s. You have to constantly, as a therapist and a mental health professional, keep yourself updated of what's kind of going on. And one of the things that I pride myself is that we integrate that. We've been integrating. It's not that we throw away the things that we're trained in. It's that we combine it and we just become better, kind of like fine wine as with age and therapy. But not only have we helped people practically, we're just this place where people are calling. There's all these devastating stories that are happening. I've had therapists reach out to me that clients are firing them for being Jewish. Clients are getting angry at them for being Jewish. The clients want to talk about the politics and get really angry if the politics don't agree. I've had therapists say, what do I do with this person? She's, on a march chanting songs of genocide, and she's not really even understanding that it's genocide. And is it my place to educate the client? Is it, where is the line? And that's a very fine line. But there's therapists that reached out. They couldn't work for a couple of weeks because they were just too devastated with what's going on in their area. So, somehow we become this source for people and they're just WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, our regular emails, people writing to us through our website footers. I mean, everywhere people can get us. And it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing how many people I've been in contact with in such a short amount of time, as we said, from literally all over the world. And all these people are so amazing. And I just really feel like blessed. But I think what Stacy said is so true. This project has sort of like, it's meant to be, like each piece of the way has been led. And there was a couple times where I was almost like, that's it, I quit. Because when we went to do when we went to put the training down for CEUs, it's so much work to get something, qualifying, and there's paperwork and there's a bibliography. That was my trigger. And
I took that over. I'm a good wifey. No, I'm just joking.
She's a great work wife. And we did it, and we did it in a record amount of time. I think we did it in like less than 48 hours or 72 hours of getting it done, which these type of things are usually put forth. It takes months to put these kind of trainings together. But I do think that there's something higher, and there's something, it's such a cause. It's such an important piece. I think for every therapist, they should have an understanding of what does being exposed to anti-Semitism or racism, if you're from a different, background, or any kind of discrimination, what being exposed to discrimination of whatever you are, what does that do on the psyche of the person that you're working with? How did that impact them? How does that impact them in all the things that they do? And I think it's an incredible piece, because the Jewish community right now, it feels anxious as a whole, and it's not a delusional anxious, it's a reality anxious. So what do we do with that anxious energy? How do we, still go on with our daily lives, but have safety? How do we go on and not, and just, see what's going on in the world, but still move forward in our lives? And it's a really important piece. And even if you are not experiencing it as a therapist, it's really important for therapists to come and hear how it's impacting other people. And again, a lot of this can be applied to other cultures, but this is one of the biggest pieces that we need to be aware of.
So one of the things in the training that we wanted to get across is that the Jewish people are a marginalized population, and a lot of people don't look at us like that, and they think that nothing ever happens to us for some reason. There's a lot of stereotyping. And so we wanted to have that piece in also, so therapists can understand that this is real, and that there are safety concerns, and that there has been persecution in the past, and there is intergenerational trauma, and the things that have happened to our ancestors that scare us today when people are talking in such an anti-Jewish way. And that it makes us feel unsafe. And people, in our smaller group, were talking about taking down their mezuzahs so people couldn't know that they were Jewish.
Let me tell everybody what a mezuzah is. So maybe not everybody in Lisa's audience knows what a mezuzah is.
Oh, okay. You can explain it.
Oh, okay. So most Jewish homes have a small scroll outside of the house. And it's really like serves as a protection, without getting into the details, but it's meant as like a protection of bad spirits, this and that. And it also in ancient days reminded somebody, like a Jewish traveler, that it's a Jewish home, because one of the key cultural components has always been hospitality, is one of the key components of the Jewish culture. And so back in, you're traveling with your camels in the desert, or your horses, whatever, in the Middle Ages, and you see the mezuzah, you know that it's a safe place for you to stop and rest for the night. But in modern day, it's really just serves as a protection that it's our home. And the fact that people are talking about hiding their Jewishness is a really scary place being. I just want to pick up also what Stacey said. Like, even recently, I received a lot of discrimination, even with just posting these trainings. This just started with me and Stacey, right? Like, there's no marketing budget. There's no budget. This isn't, and this is just starting. So the way that this got spread was posting on all the WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups. So, and I just realized that there's LinkedIn groups. That's it. And then it just got forwarded and just spread like wildfire. So I've had other therapist groups not want to post our trainings, and they're like, and I was like, but you have a day for minority populations. Like, why can't I'm following your group rules on Facebook. This is the day of the week that you have the minority populations write their specific services. And they're like, what do you mean Jewish is not a minority population? Or I've heard, from another head of the therapist saying, well, I posted it once, I posted it twice, but it's enough already. Why don't you start your own Jewish group? And these are therapists. These are people in the mental health world. Go start your own group. I don't need to start my own group because I want to talk about we'll talk about at the end who we collaborate with. We don't need to start our own group. But because it already exists and they're a great group and they do a lot of great work. So this is very, very subtle. But I started to ask, right now, I don't have the official statistics are from our friend Alexa, but the BIPOC population consists of 36.3% of the population identified as BIPOC. Okay. So 36%, so how are they a minority? 12 point something percent of the population identifies as Black. 17% identify as Hispanic, 7% identify as Asian. Jewish is 2.2. So, but we're not a minority. And that is part of the training. It's like where, people look at us as privileged and not as a minority. But here we are in a time where we are really being marginalized all over again. Just 90 years after the Holocaust is happening again. But no, it's okay to quietly tell us, you can't post here, you can't do this here because you're not really a minority.
Right.
But I have the facts.
Right.
Yeah. And I actually had therapists reach out to me trying to market for us, in Maryland, of all places, right? That you would think it would be a little progressive. And they kicked her out of the therapist listserv completely, saying that it was, too triggering with the flyer, the Israel flag was on it. And it was too much for them and that she couldn't post. I was like, wow.
I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts on.
We want to hear your thoughts, but people have told me that I'd be discriminatory doing a training for just Jewish therapists. But wait, BIPOC has their own training. Mm-hmm. Indian therapists have their own training. LGBT has their own training. Have you seen a training for have you ever seen a flyer saying heterosexual therapist flyer? No, I've never seen that. Asian has their own. Palestinian have their own training. But all I want to do is post a training for Jewish therapists and reach as many Jewish therapists as possible. And all of a sudden, I'm the one who's discriminatory. So I call it the ultimate gaslighting.
Yeah.
This is gaslighting on a macro level.
It is. And I really, really hope that's a small percentage of therapist groups out there that are doing this. I personally do not hang out in a lot of those bigger therapist groups because over the years, I have noticed the craziness, and I'll go ahead and say it. Like, I feel like it's a mind virus for some of these therapists out there. Some of the progressive ideologies, and I know we weren't going to get political here, but we're therapists, for crying out loud. Like, we are therapists. Like, our job is to be aware of our triggers and our countertransference. And when we need to take a step back and go, how am I showing up in this role as a helper? And that's mind blowing to me. Like, that is mind blowing to me. So you know what? I don't even give them my time of day. I don't give them my energy. I just bow out and I go on, I do my good work. And I just say, who is going to support us? And I will tell you, and I know that a lot of my listeners out there are supportive of this. Some of them may not be, and that's their prerogative. Like, you can move on and, not everything's going to be for you, and this may not be for you. So take what you need and leave what you don't, as one of my amazing therapist mentors used to say. Probably the biggest supporters I've had are my Christian conservative therapist friends. Go
Nice.
figure. Go figure.
Yeah.
So anyway, so these trainings coming up, we have one on November 8th. And by the time this airs, that one will have passed. The next one is November 15th. So if you are interested in signing up for that training, we will put the link in the show notes for you to go ahead and do that. And we were talking before we started recording about future trainings and how you can be kind of stay in the know as to what Malka and Stacy do next. Because I have a feeling this could really turn into something beyond just one or two trainings, ladies. I mean, I'm like trying to market for y'all. Like, I got this idea and I got that idea, and I think you should do this, but I don't want to overwhelm anybody. So what are you thinking for the future? What are your hopes?
Yeah, we're going to do more trainings. And Malka and I were just talking about, it's leading us into this role of becoming experts on transgenerational trauma and talking from that space, as well as, all the anti-Semitism and all that kind of stuff. So, Malka, do you want to add?
I mean, I think I have these two, I have this paradox in my head, because sometimes, I tell this to Stacey, sometimes I think this is going to go somewhere big, and then I'm like, or it can end next week. I think we are just going to take each training at a time. We are definitely looking for people to join in and help with us, because this is seeming to get bigger, and the need is strong. The need is really strong. And there's a lot of people reaching out. So I'm starting, I'm starting to put together some clinical supervision groups. I've had therapists that reached out. They only want to be in a Jewish clinical supervision to process a lot of the countertransference. So I started to put that out there, and just regular clinical supervision to keep this aware, because people have their prejudice, and how much are they bringing it into the therapy room? People have reached out to me. Well, my therapist started talking about the politics in the middle of the session on either side. And that's just not where, the client didn't want that. Mm-hmm. So, there's just a lot of different moving parts to this, and we don't know where it's going to go. As I said, it's meant to be, and we're just going to follow it. We're like on the ride. This has been bigger than we imagined. And we're just here to, as much as we can support people, as much as we can continue training. It's been extremely gratifying thinking that we reached out to close to 1,000 therapists. And then if they affected 10 clients, wow, that's much more powerful than what you could do it on a one-on-one basis. Definitely. So we just want to be there and support people with it. And I think one of the things that we've gotten feedback about is it's the way we're putting it together. We're putting it together in a very down-to-earth, a very practical way. There's been a few other trainings out where people are talking in theory and very big language, and it's very hard to put it. We're trying to take these theories and the research and bring it down to a very practical level of, okay, now I'm in the room with this client in front of me. What's going on? Is the trauma causing dissociation right now? Because we are seeing a really big rise in dissociation right now, in the PTSD. We're seeing a really big rise in relapse of addictions, people who've been sober and free of their addictions for a long time. We're seeing, just so many different ways and forms that this is coming out of. And whether it's addictions or eating disorders, but there's a big relapse in whatever the fallback nature is. And what do we do with that client in the moment? And how do we help them? And how do we support them? And when do we need to pass a client over for extra supervision? Or do we, and that's a very dangerous place to do. I'm actually working with somebody where the client's going to come into me and do some EMDR sessions, but because the therapeutic relationship is so strong, I don't want her to just transfer the client from me. I'm just going to do a few EMDR sessions and do some consultation with the therapist, and then hopefully get the client in a stronger place. But she's starting to show some dissociation pieces. She's starting to really unravel. And we want to kind of move the client forward so they can stay in that therapeutic relationship.
Yeah, I'm having the same experience, that therapists are reaching out for that extra support, either through consultation or allowing us to work with their clients around whatever their trauma is, because they're not yet trained. And so we can work with them for a short period of time under consultation and help them get to where they need to go, just focusing on the trauma while they're with their past therapist, talking about everyday things and getting that support. So we're happy to do that as well. It's moved into many different parts, like Malka's talking about. And
Right.
so we're happy to be there and be a support for everybody.
Okay. Well, I will definitely put your contact information, your emails in the show notes. So if people want to connect with you one-on-one, maybe do some consultation, or if they want to organize something special for maybe where they work, or, they're looking just for some extra, they're looking, they need some ethics courses, or they need some cultural competency. It's interesting. When I was in grad school, I always wondered why we didn't talk about Judaism in our cultural competence class. Like it never really came up. Like it was maybe mentioned every now and then, but you think about how much time we spend on other cultures and making sure that we understand how our own biases, maybe growing up. But that's something that I just kind of thinking back on my grad school courses. I don't know if it's different nowadays, but I finished my program in like 2006, so it's been quite some time. But yeah, I think it's a really wonderful conversation. And ladies, I'm just applaud you for what you're doing and how you have just you're impacting and helping so many. And just it's just wonderful. And I'm so grateful to have you both like in my world and in the work that you're doing. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we end?
I want to say to the therapists out there that are doubting themselves or feeling like they're imposter syndrome because they're struggling with their countertransference or they're struggling with their own process of what's going on, that you're doing a great job. I think that people don't tell therapists enough that they're doing a great job. We as therapists tell everybody else we're doing a great job. So I want to tell them that they're doing a great job, and reaching out and getting extra consultation makes you only a stronger and better therapist. It doesn't make you a weaker therapist. I want to tell everyone out there that's just really affected by what's going on that, number one, social media, we're really talking about telling people to not watch the video footage of October 7th. It's too disturbing. I think it's important to be aware, but to actually watch the footage can cause a lot of emotional damage. So we're telling everybody to really focus on some self-care pieces. That's how we end the training. Actually, we end the training with with the countertransference and the self-care piece. It's important to really step back, and this is not the time to say like I'm fine. This is the time to say like, you know what, I'm not 100% fine, and I need to reach out to a friend. This particular piece of the news really upset me, or this particular thing was the one that really got me, and where is that going to be? To all of my Jewish colleagues, I think that what's happening is many of us just felt like anti-Semitism maybe was very, very dormant in America. And now we're seeing it's not. And now we're seeing who the allies are, who are the people that are posting things that are anti-Semitic on social media that we thought were our friends, who are the people that didn't bother to reach out to us or support us in any way. It feels like a betrayal, and it is a betrayal. And how are we going to cope with that, but still rise and be stronger? And I think I want to end, unless Stacey has something else, with the whole piece when we say nobody recognizes them as a minority, because one of the things that we found about the Jewish people is that we're very resilient, and we see ourselves as survivors and not as victims. And Jews themselves don't like to call themselves a minority and don't like to call themselves marginalized until we really are. But, we are resilient and we are survivors and we are going to survive this. But that means getting the resources and getting the help that's out there and available. And if Stacey and I could be a resource for you, we are 100% happy to do that.
I just wanted to add to that self-care piece. That's so important. And what I'm hearing from therapists is that they don't need the self-care piece. They don't need that information, because I'm offering up, do you want to continue with tapping and learning different things for your clients? Or do you want to do some self-care? And they're like, I don't need the self-care. I've done this for many, many years and I don't need all that. I'm like, well, maybe we could use some of the stuff that we are working on for the clients on ourselves as well, because in the long haul, we don't want people burning out. We don't want them to leave the field. Like we saw a lot of that during COVID. where like, I don't know, 40%, I think, of therapists left the field, all because we weren't using our self-care tools and learning some of these energy things that can be super helpful to get through these rough times.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think you're right about the people not taking self-care seriously. And that's the first thing I do when I feel overwhelmed and burnt out. I also want to encourage people to when it comes to your kids and kind of protecting them and what's going on out there. I mean, I don't know, I saw some article about TikTok being, the algorithm is so skewed towards the opposing, I don't want to say opposing, but like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but just not being the healthiest place for people to get their information from because of the algorithm. And so if parents are listening and really take a look at what your kids are on social media, maybe now is the time to take off TikTok. Maybe now is the time to really put some parameters around social media apps and really have conversations with your kids too about what they're experiencing. I think that's something that is really important, especially for our teens. The kids that are, going to school every day, walking to school, just having those conversations with them about what it's like for them. I guess that's kind of I wanted to put that in there in some level because that's what we're doing, you know, in our neck of the woods down here.
That is such a good point because when this first came out, my daughter came to me and she goes to overnight camp, but she had counselors who were from Israel. And I had no idea that this was going to impact us so much. But in the first week, she lost 4 counselors in the massacres. And so we had to, talk about what was going to be seen on social media, and we cut it off her phone as well. And she went to some Zoom memorials to be a part of it and things like that. But it's hitting everybody,
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
knows somebody that's been affected.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's like such a small populous percentage of the population. It's like we all can connect somewhere to each other and to Israel. It's pretty wild when you think about it. And as much as I hate to say it, the fact that it has brought Jews of all denominations together
Mhm.
to work together is probably one of the most beautiful things I've seen in my entire life. And I'm 50 years old and I can't remember a time when I've ever felt so connected to other Jews, even Jews of different denominations. I know there's a lot we could talk about in that, I'm sure, spiritually, but
That's what we feel really strongly about. I personally identify as Orthodox, and I have been in some Orthodox circles where they really wanted to just do programming focused just on the Orthodox. And I feel, we're one Jewish people, and our enemies are not going to distinguish between us. Like, we need to unite. And that's why Shalom workshops, whatever this comes to be, and if it becomes to be bigger, is going to include anybody who just identifies themselves as Jewish, or anybody feels like they're working with Jewish clients. It's really going to be a very inclusive healing space and a zero tolerance for anything that's negative towards any other groups. Like, we're not going to allow that. That's not part of who we are. But we are open to ideas. We've had a few different organizations reach out saying that they might want us to speak for them. We're open, and we definitely want other therapists to kind of join in with us and be part of this as this piece unravels, especially anybody with a lot of experience in trauma or just a lot of experience in getting these things up and mobilized, because there's just a lot to organize, and we can't do it all of ourselves either. So yeah.
That unity piece is so special because I think that is part of the spiritual aspect of the energy where we are all connected and coming together. And, so many people are starting to light their Shabbos candles and say Tehillim and do all of these different things that people haven't done in generations. So it's cool to watch.
yeah. Well, ladies, thank you so much. I will put all the information in the show notes for any therapist, Jewish, non-Jewish, whatever, come and learn about how to help your Jewish clients deal with the trauma, vicarious trauma, secondary trauma, anti-Semitism trauma, any trauma. They are going to address it. So, all right. Thank you, ladies, again so much for being here. This has been great. Well, I hope you found this episode helpful, and don't forget to check out Malka and Stacy's training on November 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which I know is tonight. You will gain insights into active and communal trauma, assessment skills, and concrete tools to calm your nervous system, along with a Jewish cultural competency component. Plus, you'll learn ways to self-regulate, including emotional freedom technique and tapping. Yep, you're also going to receive 1.5 continuing education contact hours. So click the link in the show notes to learn more and sign up. And if you can't make it tonight, that's okay. Be sure to sign up for their future workshops. Just tap the link in the show notes. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.